That's okay. So hi guys, my name is Barb. I am a mentor from Team 36A3, Team Dave, and I'm here on behalf of WFRO, so that is the Waterloo Wellington First Robotics Organization, to talk to you guys about social media. So this will be a four-part series. It'll be happening every Wednesday at 5:40ish, 5:30ish, between that time. So I'll go over what we're going to talk about in a moment, but today we'll be talking about the basics of social media. So before we go into that, what is social media? So in technical terms, it is a computer-based technology that facilitates the sharing of ideas, thoughts, and information through the building of virtual networks and communities. By design, social media is internet-based and gives users quick electronic communication of content. In even simpler terms, it is basically a technology that allows users across the world to share information at a faster rate. This is something that's been never done in history. It's totally new for the past 20 years. So what are we going to be covering? So in this four-part series, we will cover basics of social media, some tools for social media. We're going to go over Adobe Spark and Photopea, and then we're going to talk about social media interactions and misinformation. So again, this will be happening every Wednesday at 5:30ish, give or take a couple of minutes. So what are we going to cover today? So today we're going to talk about the importance of social media, different types of social media. We're going to compare the kind of posts you should put on each various platform. We're going to talk about cross-media posts, and then we're going to go over some key elements of the social media post. And then lastly, we're going to talk about websites, which technically aren't social media, but they are important in the first world. So the importance of social media. Why is it important? So we want to think about FRC as a business. So why do companies create a variety of social medias? Here are just a couple of reasons. So coming at this from a business perspective, it's important to us because it is integrated in a majority of people's lives. Think about it. When do you check your phone? When you first wake up, before you go to sleep, at meal times, during breaks? Do you check it just on your cell phones, or do you also use your computer? It is a huge, huge part of the 21st century lifestyle. It also allows you to create connections and relationships with your followers. So for us, as an FRC team, we can connect with people that we would see at competitions. We can connect with people in our communities. So it creates those connections virtually that you then can expand on physically or in person. It also allows for the exchanging for information. So you put out information, but you also retain information. You're sharing your expertise. And then the biggest thing is you're watching those trends. So you're seeing what's popular and you want to hop on that trend game when needed. So one example of this was earlier this year or late last year, there was the first trend of saying whether or not you were registered for the 2021 season. So that was a trend within FRC. So most teams hopped on that. So you want to keep an eye out on those kinds of trends. It also creates an increased awareness of brand recognition. So brand recognition would be your name. So for Team Dave, it is the name Dave. If you yell Dave at any competition, any member of our team will most likely turn around to see what you're talking about. You will see the green shirts, you see our logo, that is part of our brand. So with this, it provides opportunities. So opportunities such as social sponsors can find you on social media and be like, oh my God, we want to work with you. You can get opportunities such as outreach events. And it's just like that continuing cycle of possibilities. So moving forward, we're just gonna talk about different types. So social media, there are 3 different types within that lovely umbrella. So there's social network sites. So this is, a couple examples are where you're just connecting. So think Pinterest, TikTok, YouTube. Social networking would be more like Facebook, apologies. I have it in my notes wrong. So it's also LinkedIn, so it's connecting with those people. Next up would be media sharing. So media sharing is that sharing of the photos. This is where you would see a lot of Instagram, Pinterest, and the TikTok. So it's just exchanging the media. And then there's thought sharing sites. So this would most likely be like Twitter. Another example that's technically not social media would be the website. So there's this large encompassing umbrella of social media of the different types, but they all have their own unique use. Additionally, we have what we want to go into a social media post. So there's three things. There's excite, educate, experience. So you want to think about each of these things that go into engaging your followers and getting them to follow you, comment, like, whatever you need. So you want to look at those responses. So for exciting, you want to think about what you can do. This can be a variety of things like posting a robot teaser, posting some tips or a countdown to like a contest you would be doing. Educating, so this is when you want to spread the information. So for this, a lot of teams will spread information about FIRST or their social media. They'll talk about what they do on their team, they'll talk about their robots, and then experiencing. So it's giving them the experience, so like putting them in the situation. So this is where you'll see teams doing those season recaps. It gives them an idea of like what your experience was like and lets them kind of see that. It's where you get those amazing videos of like at competition matches. When you show those, that's experiencing it as well. So now we are going to go into a little bit into actually like different types of social media. So to start off, we've got Facebook. So what is Facebook? Facebook is all three under that social media umbrella. So it is media sharing, it is social network, it is a thought sharing platform. In the context of FIRST, Facebook is usually the target audience for this. It's going to be your sponsors, it's going to be your team members, it's going to be those family members, especially those older ones. Because as of right now, if you haven't noticed, a lot of youth don't always use Facebook. It's not their primary go-to, but it is for that older generation. It is for those aunts, those uncles. So this is a way to connect to the extended family. It also is important for FIRST teams because FIRST will post information on Facebook, FIRST Canada, they'll post photos, and that's actually where cross media comes because they might be posting stuff on Facebook, but they post somewhere else as well. So when it comes to Facebook posts, you want to think about having it, this is where you can go more detailed into your post. You can go into longer posts. You can have those like nice chunky paragraphs that you might not want to have for other types of media. You also always want to include multiple photos because they're more likely to catch the user's eyes. They're more likely to get them engaged and interact with your post. When it comes to what you want to post, though, you want to post about those bigger events, not the smaller ones. You want to think about like the who it is that's going to reach and what your audience is. So you want to post those competition recaps. You want to post those like outreach events. You don't really want to post the small things like, hey, we had a team meeting. This is awesome. And then one thing to keep in mind is that the Facebook algorithm does prefer videos. So this is a great chance for you to use those videos and all that stuff. So again, examples, so season and competition recaps, big events, overview posts for your outreach opportunities. You can do one beforehand, you're like, hey, we're gonna be here, check it out, and then one for afterwards. So one team you should look at when it comes to, that does it Facebook pretty well, is actually team 2056, so OP Robotics. They have those like photos, they use photos in other posts, they do somewhat post frequently. Their banner is about a couple of years old, so that's maybe not the ideal. But when you're setting up your Facebook, you want to take a look at various different teams and just see what they're doing, see if it's working well for them, if they're getting that following, if they're getting those interactions, and just take a look into that. Next week, we will be looking a little bit into analytics. So seeing how it does actually do. So next up, we're going to talk about Instagram. So this is your media sharing site. It is also somewhat thought sharing. It depends on what you're putting out there, but it can be a little bit. So your target audience for this in terms of FRC is those FIRST teams, it's the sponsors, it's team members, and it's the general community. So Instagram is the primary platform for FIRST teams. This is where you're going to see a lot more interactions from every team. You can interact with teams from the States, from Australia, from Europe, from Israel. This is a lot like the hub right now for social media in terms of FIRST. So in terms of what you want to post, you want to think about posting a graphic rather than if you're going to post a graphic, rather than a photo, you want to make sure that that graphic is simple. So it's not very busy, it doesn't have too much text. Text is perfect in the description. It's just so that it's eye-catching. You want to make sure that it's going to bring people in so that they do interact with your photos. When it comes to the description, it's a mix on whether or not you want to have it too long or not. If you're going to have a longer one, you want to have it broken up into small paragraphs with like periods in between or anything like that, just because then it's a lot easier for them to consume and read. And this is a very important place also to use those hashtags, and you want to tag and interact with people when you can. So hashtags will bring people to your content that might not be following you already. Again, we're going to go into that a little bit next week. And tagging people also lets people repost on theirs, on their, they can post on their stories and stuff like that. Instagram also does have a lot of options. You can do that Instagram post, you can do that Instagram story, you can post in your Instagram Reels, which is a lot like what you would think TikTok is, where it's a 60-second max. And then if you have those longer videos, this is great. You can also put them on Instagram because there's Instagram TV. So it's a platform that will create a post and then it'll say, click, like watch more on Instagram TV. And this is actually something that the algorithm does prioritize. But going back to regular posts, you want to be conscious if you're going to use multiple photos, what order you put the photos in, because if it is supposed to be a set order like 1, 2, 3, 4, that might not necessarily work because Instagram will choose a random photo out of yours to be the first one to show up, and it might not be the same across all of them. So you do want to be conscious in what order you put those photos in. And then just some examples for content you can put on your Instagram. You can do those competition updates. You can do seasonal events. So those are your outreach events. If you do an open house, if you have a sponsored barbecue, awareness information. So one thing that Team TAVE does is like we will look at a month. So this month is mental health awareness. So we will be posting on our story some social tips for like how to deal with stress, how to cope with demotivation. So this is the perfect place for that kind of stuff. And then it's just deciding, is this a story post? Sorry, is this a Instagram post or an Instagram story? And then also team campaigns. So this is where you have those like contests that 2702 does and all that stuff. And then one team you actually want to look at is 772. So 772, which you can see here, they have their volunteer appreciation post right now. They are using simple graphics. So yes, it's photos, but it's still very simple. It's very eye-catching. It's bright colors. They also have their Instagram highlights. So that is where you can save past stories so that people can continually see them and continually interact. And it's actually very important. Yeah. So moving forward, we do have Twitter. So Twitter is another one that did used to be a lot more popular pre-COVID. It has slightly died down for teams, but who knows what could happen with it. So what is Twitter? As we said before, it is primarily a thought sharing. So it's where you get those words out and stuff. So your target audience for this, again, is going to be those first teams, the sponsors, your team members, and then again, the general community. It's basically the same thing as Instagram, but like more focused on the words. So again, each tweet should be short. You have a max of 280 characters. However, if there's something that you want to expand on, so you want to expand on those thoughts, or you're doing a competition update of like, hey, we're in this matchup next, you can do a thread. So threads allow you to expand on that thought and that they link each tweet in it. So you're going to have that tweet of like, hey, we're in this next match with so-and-so teams, follow up in the thread and be like, hey, this is how we did, this is our next match, and just have that lovely thread. It keeps it all together and it's more likely to pop up potentially on their feed and let it be eye-catching. So then another thing with Twitter is there is such a thing as retweeting or quote tweeting. So this is something you can do if you see content that you like. So First Canada is putting out the fact that they had their last show yesterday, so you can retweet it. Retweeting is just taking that exact tweet and just putting it on someone's feed that follows you, but might not necessarily follow First Canada. Quote tweeting is a little bit different. It does the same thing, but quote tweeting allows you to add text. So say you're going to quote tweet the same post of like First Canada's last live of the season. I mean, it was yesterday. So you quote tweet that being like, oh my goodness, we always enjoyed this, something like that. And then this is also something where images are nice, but they're not necessary. Images can add, they can be a little bit quicker, but it's not the primary tool for this. So you can always add some GIFs, pictures, but it's up to you, and it's just like up to your judgment. So examples of this would be quick competition updates, statements, tagging trends. So that trend I talked about earlier with the did you register for the season? There's always ones like that of like, there was one when Chairman's was being submitted, it was just like, did we submit it? Did you? We submitted for this award, did you? Stuff like that. And also awareness information. So again, last month, Team Dave talked about blood donation because it was Be a Donor Month. So we chose to put that information on our Twitter versus our Instagram this time around. And we just created a thread of various statistics. So it's just thinking of that. So one team you want to emulate with this is actually Makeshift Robotics. They do a great mix of tweets. They do keep it updated a little bit. They add those photos in, and they are frequently like quote tweeting and retweeting other content. So they are actually a very good team to emulate. Or just to take a look at, again, look at a variety of teams, but this is a very good team to start with. Next up is TikTok. I will start this off by saying TikTok is not very popular for teams. I can think of maybe 2 teams that actually have a TikTok account and that use it, or there's also FRC memes. However, this potentially could be more popular in the future, so I just want to bring it to your attention. So when it comes to target audience for TikTok, you don't have those first teams, you don't have those sponsors you're really going for. This is where you want to target your team members. You want to target the general community. So here you're going to be posting fun videos, story times, those viral dances. So this is also very similar to Instagram Reels. So you can choose, you can either put a TikTok on TikTok, or you can record something similar and put it on your Instagram, or you can do both. Basically, what you want to do for this is you want to have that easy, digestible information and content. You don't want to have anything too heavy. TikTok does have a feature where you can have max 60 seconds. I believe they recently introduced for certain content creators that you can have up to 3 minutes, but it's not really the ideal. TikTok is just like quick things you're just scrolling through and liking. So examples, you can put up memes from your team. The only meme I can think of is Team Dave had a meme about spicy ketchup about a couple years ago. So this is where we can talk about that. I have a meme about me that I really like spicy Skittles. Fun fact, I don't, but this is a thing that has been perpetuated within First Canada sometimes. So this is where I could talk about that. There's short clips from meetings, short clips of a robot, just like easy digestible content that's interesting and amusing and going to bring people in. Next up is YouTube. So YouTube is a media sharing site. And this is actually, it is important because YouTube is highly used by a lot of teams, but not for the primary. They will use it as a addition to whatever they're posting on Instagram. So on Instagram, you might make a post being like, oh my God, here's a clip from our chairman's video. You can see the full chairman's video on YouTube. So it'll just link the two. Most people usually don't just post on YouTube. They will have some sort of cross mix. But it's very important because although Instagram does have that Instagram video where you can watch it right then and there, not all content is ideal for Instagram TV. Some of it does have to go onto YouTube, such as these lovely workshops. You can watch all of them on our YouTube stream channel. We do stream them and then we do save them to the YouTube. So when it comes to YouTube, your target audience is going to be first teams, the sponsors, and general community. So you want to make sure your content is well edited. You also want to make sure it's consistent edited. So whatever you set early on, it might evolve and it might change, but it still wants to be somewhat consistent. You don't want to have like in the same year, really good videos, like properly edited, and then a couple of like not so good ones tossed in, it's not the ideal. Your video quality should also be high and consistent as well. So you don't want to be going from something that's super high quality in the same video to something that's lesser quality. You want to just try and keep it consistent because it just makes it look a lot better on your team. And when it comes to YouTube, there are a couple of key tricks. So first off, you want to utilize those tags and description keywords to help your search. So this is when someone's searching in YouTube, they're going to type in some sort of workshop. You want to have those proper tags so that your video is popping up a little bit higher if they're scrolling through, so that they're more likely to see it. And then titles should also be short and sweet. You don't want them to have too long because no one's really going to pay attention to that. They just want to see those short and sweet titles. You want to think about clickbait. So any sort of social media should be clickbaity, but it is a huge, huge help for YouTube videos. So think about those like Watch Mojo videos. It's like 10 things, or like the top 10 couples in TV shows. So that's something that's drawing you in, including the thumbnail for that. So the thumbnail is also important. So an example for YouTube is you can post those sponsor videos, you can post your recap videos, you can post workshops such as this one, you can post your chairman's videos, etc. And then if you are doing a wide variety on YouTube, there's a great feature, which you'll see here with our example of OP Robotics again, where you can organize it based off of what it is. So you'll see they have their 2056 ways to inspire. So this was a thing that they did. I don't know if they're still going through with it a couple of years ago. So all of those videos are there. You'll see it on the Wilfero account. We'll have our workshops organized based off like their mechanical workshop, if they're a tech workshop. So this just helps people consume media once they actually get to your page and they subscribe to you and they're looking for that stuff. So now we're going to talk about comparing. So here we have Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, and your website. I know I haven't talked about the website yet, but it is included in this. And then we have a couple of examples going down the side of posts. So your competition update. So this is something you do want to post to Facebook, you do want to post to Instagram, you do want to post to Twitter. You might not post a single competition update to YouTube, so it's not really necessary. And then you do want to post those onto your website as well. So your season recaps. So this is something you want to post across all media. You want to talk about how your build season went. You want to talk about how your competition season went, because it's going to make people interested. And again, going back to those 3 E's, the engage, educate, and experience, it's going to hit all 3. And it's going to want people to, excite. It's going to want people to engage with your social media. So that is the overall end goal with any sort of social media, is you want people to engage. You want people to be commenting, to be liking, to be sharing, to be saving. That is the goal, because that is how you get your information across, and that's how you connect with more people. So you have those seasonal events, such as like your outreach events. So these are things you do want to post on your Facebook, your Instagram, and your Twitter. You might not want to post about all seasonal events on your website or YouTube. It is completely up to you and how you use your website in that case. Announcements. So these are announcements such as, hey, we have this contest coming up, or hey, we have this competition coming up. It's up to you as to what, if you want to put on Facebook, depending on what type of announcement it is. But it is something you do want to post on your Instagram. It is something you want to post to your Twitter. It's not really something we want to post to your YouTube or your website, because that won't be the first place that people are going to look. They'll be more likely to be scrolling through that and just to see it, be like, oh, hey, this is awesome. We should check it out. So those tagging trends that I spoke about earlier. So this isn't something that really happens on Facebook. It might pop up on your Facebook through cross-media posts if you have it linked between your Instagram or Twitter. But it's not really something that does primarily happen on Facebook. It is primarily the Instagram and Twitter. So again, this isn't really something you'll post on your YouTube or website, because it doesn't make sense with the type of platform that they are. Build updates. So if you're the type of team that'll post in between, being like, hey, it's a week 3, this is what we've done so far. This is something you might not put on Facebook. You might put it on your Instagram and Twitter. This is where you want to be really careful because you do want to share that with your followers. You do want to engage with the community with that, but you don't want other teams to see what you're doing. So you can post on your website, because teams aren't really likely to go creep through other teams' websites to be like, ooh, have they posted any accidental photos of their robot? So it's really up to you, but the website is usually cleaner. And then an outreach post. So this is something you want to post on your Facebook, your Instagram. You might not do this on your Twitter, simply because unless you do a thread of like while you're at the outreach event, it's already happened, so people won't really care as much on your Twitter. YouTube is, again, a little bit of a toss-up. Primarily it's no, unless you've gotten good footage, which not every team does. That might usually just be included within your chairman's video, if you ever do that, or like you do an end of year season recap. And then you do want to post about how these outreach events went on your website for two reasons, because if you ever do go to apply for the Chairman's Award and you do submit that application, this is a great way to keep track for you what you've done, but also judges can then go through the website if they choose to, or you can copy and paste it to do that supplemental documentation. Plus, it looks good to the sponsors. The sponsors might be checking your website to see what you're doing in the community. They're giving you this money and they want to see that return. So then next up, we're going to talk about a little bit about cross-media posts. So what is a cross-media post? So it's the type of information or media that you could post across multiple platforms. So we talked about some examples earlier in that comparison chart. So just some tips for cross-media posts. The first thing is you want to adjust the content depending on the platform. So say you're posting something on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. So for Facebook, you can go into a lot more detail of, like, let's say it was a competition recap, or competition recap, you're posting on all three. Twitter, you've already posted a little bit, but you can always be like, hey, check this out. We have this video somewhere, or let's go season recap. So on Twitter, you can be like, hey, season's done. You can do a little thread of like how you did. And then in the end, you can be like, you can go check out our YouTube to see a lovely season recap video. On Instagram, you can do a couple of photos throughout the season at various events in the build season and do a little bit there and be like, hey, go check out YouTube. And then on Facebook, you can go way more into depth. You can potentially put your video right there. You can also link it straight to your Facebook or your YouTube, because the YouTube link will show up there. And just like go more into depth. But like you just want to adjust the content. So you want to make sure you're using less words for the Instagram. You can use less media for the Twitter, and then you just want to combine the two for the Facebook. So it can be helpful to share information from Instagram to Twitter and Facebook and vice versa. But if you're just doing the link, so when you're posting on Instagram, you can say share straight to Twitter, and that it can lead to awkward links that people then have to go through. So if you're sharing something from Instagram to Twitter, what it will do is it'll just be like, start it off and then have ... and then just have a random Instagram link, which people will not click. I know this from experience. I know this because I won't click on those. I don't really care to. It's just a little awkward then. So you just want to adjust the content. And then this is when you want to utilize multiple utilize the multiple platforms to get you want to just make sure you're adjusting the content. And then at the same time, you want to aim to have them post at the same time. So you can use scheduled posts to help with this. So on Facebook, you can schedule posts to go out at a certain time. You can't really do that with Twitter or with Instagram, but you can have it prepped and ready and then just like save in your drafts and just go for it. You want to make sure that they're going out approximately within a couple of minutes of each other, just so you can hit across all those medias. And then you want to utilize multiple platforms to get a variety of information out. So you can post similar media, but you don't have to post the same thing. So it's with that example I just spoke about, it's going to be similar, but it's not going to be exactly the same. I skipped one. So key elements of a social media post. So these are just some comments key factors. So it's the nitty gritty. These are going to vary based on the type of post and where you are sharing it, but these are just like common across them all. So first things first, you want it to be eye-catching. So like I said before, it's the clickbait feeling. You want it to grab your eye. You want to make someone want to look at the post and interact with it. And then this is also something that's going to play a big part into your branding of, is your team branding working, that it does get you that? Do you have to adjust your branding a little bit? So it's the colors you use in your posts, if you're using a graphic and stuff like that. And then length. So I've talked about this a lot. Some things might be longer on certain things. So this is specific based on what you are sharing on. So the key thing with this is that something that is too long will make people disassociate, but too short also isn't the best either, because then people just glaze over but don't retain that information. And then tone is a very important thing. So tone is actually a little bit different than voice. So with tone, you want to think, is it a positive tone? Is it negative? Is it passive? Is it active? It also plays, it's a big important part of if people react to it. So think about when you're tweeting about your competitions, like how you're doing in that match. If you say we lost, it's not ideal. You don't want to just have it like that. You want to have it be like, we might have, like, we lost this match, but it's okay. We have a couple more coming up. Like, we still have a chance. Like, you want it to be positive because people are more likely to interact with that positive content. And it also is important depending on what information is being passed across. And then voice. So voice, you want to think of, does it match your intended audience? So here you want to think about what phrases you would be using for things. So if you're going to use a frame that's hip with the kids, is this going to be something that your parents or sponsors are going to understand, or just your friends? So this is very important, especially based off of the type of media you're sharing across. And then accuracy. So accuracy is something we're going to delve in a little bit specifically in that last part of the series, social media series. But it is important that you are not spreading disinformation. You want to make sure you're researching your information, that it's important that you are not just not only like bluffing what you're saying about your team that your team has done, but also if you're resharing something that's just correct. And then you want to think about call to action, whether it's liking the photo, retweeting, taking part in the contest, sharing a common post, signing position. You do want to make sure that that is a little bit involved in your post as well, depending on what it is. And then lastly, I think something just came up and blocked the media. Anyway, so lastly is the website. So what is your website? It is a media sharing and thought sharing. So with your website, it's your target audience is sponsors, your parents, and then people wanting to learn more about the team. So this is where people go to learn about the team. Oh, there it is, sorry. This is where people go to learn more about the team. So you want to have a blog section, you want to link your social media when possible, but the ideal thing for this is you want to customize it for your team. So whatever you want to put across. So some examples of things you can put in your blog are those season recaps, event recaps, outreach updates, team information. So this is where you can go wild and make it very unique to you. All of your social media will be somewhat unique based off of what you post, how you post it, when you post it, but the website is very, very catered to you. So some examples here I have are Team Dave's and 2702's. So their landing pages are very similar. They have the team photo, they have what they do, where they're based, but some other things might be a little bit different. Team Dave is planning on putting out their past robots, what they've built and how they worked. 2702 might go a little bit more into their sponsors, into their contacts us, and then they have their resources. So it's very dependent on what you want to put forward as a team, but it's also very important because it is a form of social media that is like a lot older, but it is still very important. And then lastly, it is as everything for today. So next week we're going to go into tools for social media. So we're going to look into those analytics. We're going to look into secondary applications you can use. So yeah, I did go a little bit over time today, but I hope I didn't speak too fast, and I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you guys have any questions, feel free to reach out through the WWFIRST social. I will try to answer any, but I hope you guys got a little bit out of this. So yeah, thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Barb.